while. Welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today we got an exciting video of vintage chainsaw BS. And we've got us a Homelite XL12 here. I can't believe it. After playing with saws for 40 years, this is the first one I've ever owned. And these were a tremendous change in the saw industry. Changed it overnight from just so-so sales to massive sales for Homelite. And they made them from 1964 to 1988. They're a 54cc saw. This one is as found. It was supposed to be run about 7 years ago. But see, it's nice and dirty, but it's pretty much complete. We also found this a nice vintage Homelite cap for out in the woods there, hard hat. So before I get too far into this, and I'll show you the features and stuff, I'll show you why this saw was such a game changer. This is basically what Homelite was selling shortly before that saw came out. And you can see it's a real old design. Everything's out in the open. No safety features. But they were dependable and they did a lot of work. They're also nice and heavy. But it's amazing they went from this, and like clutching everything's right out in the open and stuff. It's totally modern, compact, powerful within 2 years. So anyway, we'll go over the features of the saw here briefly. The standard XL is kind of unusual in it doesn't have automatic chain oiling. It has a pump by hand right here, missing a knob, which I've got coming. And your fuel fill is here. Has a 24-inch bar on it, which is the maximum for this. Got a small spike dog here. Muffler's right out in the open. Does have a throttle lock right here. Here's your choke, your ignition switch. Everything's laid out really nice and easy to get to. Air filter's right under here. Got a crack in this. I'll find a better one. But like I say, it was a game changer because the 12 stands for 12 pounds. It weighed 12 pounds and 12 ounces. The buzz that I just showed you weighs almost 20 pounds. Huge difference. And these are not a real high-speed saw. They hadn't come in yet. This will run up to about 9,500 with no load. Under a load it runs at 6,000, which is fairly slow, but these saws were super dependable. This gave Homelite a whole new life on the homeowner market and stuff because they were easy to maintain, and if you gave them good service, they last forever. So anyway, talk about a few of the other features here. The next model I had was a Super XL. Had more displacement, was 58cc, and you run a little longer bar and stuff, but the same power head exactly. And so the thing that when you get into an old saw like that, if you're a collector, there's some do's and don'ts. You know, one do is to make sure it's 100% complete, like this one basically is. And one of the don'ts is to just reach on the recoil and pull it through and see if it's got good compression, because if you do that, when these things have been sitting, there's carbon and rust in the mufflers. It can be drawn into the cylinder and junk it out, even if it was a good saw before you did that. So what I do, if I look at an old saw, I turn it on its side like this, then pull it through slowly, and you can see this thing has really good compression. But any debris and stuff that would be in the muffler will drop right out. So I'll get the muffler off and we'll be right back. Okay, well, we got the screws out. Bring a close up here. You can see all this loose carbon in here just flying off there. So that could go right into the piston and score the cylinder and the bore. So it's always best to clean these and before you try running them. The next thing you want to do is, if there's any carbon in the exhaust port, you want to remove that. This has just a little bit, but not a whole lot. And there's also a spark arrestor plate in here. The thing I found on the Homelites, they have a lot of area in the exhaust port, but they have a lot of restriction in their exhaust here, and there's usually a big bunch of carbon on the back side of these flame traps, so that's something to look out for. So anyway, we'll be back here in just a minute. Well, like I was saying, this is probably the most iconic chainsaw ever made because of the long production run with minimum changes. It was so good to begin with, it didn't need a lot of changes. But it was also the most copied chainsaw. A lot of other manufacturers copied this saw, and I'll show you some examples. Here's a little Remington PL5. This is made by the Remington Firearms Company, but if you look at the layout, air filter is exactly the same. This housing is the same looks. The oil button's in the same exact spot. The trigger lock's in the same spot. Muffler, the oil fill's in the same spot. That's a complete clone. This little Pioneer P20 is a semi-clone. There's still a lot of the layout's basically the same, but this doesn't have a overriding oil button, a manual oiler. It's just all automatic, but the layout's the same. Starter in the same place, lock, choke, muffler, all the same stuff. You know, like I say, the Homelite was selling so well, everybody else decided to copy it, and they try to make you think you were getting Homelite. Here's another clone. This is a Sears Craftsman. This was made by the Roper manufacturer, but there again the same layout, fuel in the front, air filter, oil button, recoil, muffler, almost 100% copy. And there is one copy, I don't have one, but Lombard chainsaws, the later ones of those were almost 100% copy of the Homelite. The reason for that, they hired an engineer from Homelite to design the saw for them, so it looks so close the parts would even interchange. So anyway, if you're a real Homelite fan, I'll talk soon and show you some information of different videos to watch, different channels and stuff that do a lot of Homelite stuff specifically. So anyway, remember, vintage is good. We'll be back after a bit. Well, I'm going to do a comparison on these saws here pretty soon. This one doesn't require too much work to get it up and running. The McCulloch 600 series was made 1 year less than the XL series like this, but it actually outsold it because there was more McCulloch dealers around. But they're both 54cc, same chains and bar, pretty much everything the same. So have a little contest and see how they perform against each other in an upcoming video. So vintage is best, and we'll see you on the next video. Well, if you're a Homelite chainsaw collector and enthusiast, there's some other YouTube videos and channels that I'd recommend. Smitty's Chainsaws and Firewood. This guy's a real hardcore collector and repairs them and uses them. Does how-to videos, and totally into it. So that's one YouTube channel I'd recommend is Leon's Chainsaws, Parts and Repairs. He's out of Southern Oregon. He does lots of how-to repair videos and stuff, sells parts, and he's also a collector. Another channel I'd recommend if you're into history of Homelite and others is Bayou Country Power Saws. He's done histories on Homelite, Pullen, and McCulloch chainsaws, and so if you want a chronological history and stuff, I'd recommend watching that.